We were just in one of our More Money Now groups, so I may have a couple people joining to talk about the power of the group. So it's kind of ironic that they're not able to get in to the Restream room, or something went wrong as we left the Wheelo campus to come into this system. And I'll just pop people in if they're able to get in. But I've given up on trying to do tech support on all these platforms for other people. And I just kind of tell them, well, I got the same link you got, work it out. And I had to learn that the hard way. And I guess the funny thing about this is part of what I wanted to talk about, which is the challenge with the technology when you're doing something, or at least when I'm doing something as an entrepreneur, coach, service provider, whatever you are, on your own, where you may have a team around you, you may have some resources, but you don't have a corporate enterprise, where there's an IT department, there's a consulting team, there's a whatever, and you've got to figure it out. One of the reasons I think I've always been able to succeed as an entrepreneur and bootstrapped. Now, it's one thing if you can, somebody gives you 10 million bucks and, then you lose control of your company if you take that money. But for some people, they have to, because they need the money to build the technology or whatever it is. And I think I've been fortunate where I never had to do that. But I didn't have the expertise, resources, infrastructure, or team to build what's next. In other words, figure out where technology was going, figure out where my vision was going, and what I had to construct to turn it into what I wanted it to be. I had to figure it out myself. Now, the way to do that and the power of the group, I think, is the point here. So the idea is, I don't have all the skills. In fact, I don't have very many skills. I would say I have few skills. The only thing I'm really good at is seeing what's next in terms of where the society's going, where the market's going, by being in it. I call it running into burning buildings, which is crashing private parties, paying attention, doing all kinds of business development activity inside the market, starting to notice where the opportunities are, going after them, and beginning to deliver something into that marketplace of value on my own terms, in my own way, that maybe often isn't even understood very well because it's a little bit ahead of where the marketplace is. And I've always been able to do that somehow. And what I've noticed is that over time, I've gotten better at bringing other people into these experiments. And the way that I've done it is not to find people who already know how to do the thing that I'm trying to do, because I can't afford it, or those kinds of people are almost impossible to work with. And I went through with my sales company called Sales Partners, which is now rebranded OpGen. So my partner Glenn and I talk on Wednesday about that experience, building passive income company, lifestyle company for both of us. It is helping understand what kinds of resources, what kinds of people, what kinds of technology are going to be necessary in an interconnected way to pull that vision, pull that idea into the marketplace and turn it into something real at a very, very, very low cost, with the least amount of pain, based on limited knowledge and often being blind, swimming around underwater, not really knowing what's going on at all, but not letting that stop you. So one of the things that I did was I saw the idea for a revenue department back in maybe 2016. So I'm seeing these markets of inbound versus outbound, cold calls versus lead gen, content marketing versus sales calls. I saw this for a long time, and I'm like, well, I want to do all of it, as opposed to this is better than another, or this, and it was obvious what was going on was people were pushing their industry and pushing what they do in friction against another approach. So if you do cold calls and you say, well, cold calls don't work, people are like, well, I don't want to do them anymore, so I want to know what doesn't work. So those are the Google ads, and you'd end up with somebody who sold like content marketing or inbound marketing or something. Um, or you'd have an agency that became a HubSpot certified agency. I saw a lot of that going on at the time. So all the agencies were kind of commoditized. So they're trying to figure out, how do we deliver revenue? Well, HubSpot's putting these systems together with content marketing platforms. So they're becoming part of the HubSpot ecosystem as an independent agency. So then the friction is, well, is it that, or is it an outbound sales team? And it's this crazy belief laden debate that doesn't mean anything going on in the marketplace, because I was like, well, all I care about is revenue, profitable revenue at the least amount of friction, the least amount of technology, the least amount of trouble. And that's what everyone else cared about that was hiring me, to do that for them. So it seemed kind of obvious. Why don't we just do everything? That's hard. So to figure out how to do everything became like a couple year experiment. And the key was, can we do this under 10 grand a month? Now, to do it for 20 grand a month, it wasn't that hard. And I saw people who did it, and I explored their companies, and I'm trying to figure out, how did they do this? And some of them figured it out. There was one guy, his company was called Scaled down in Texas, and I was pissed off when I saw it, because of like, he figured out what I'm trying to do. And there was another one in Boston, and I forget the name of it. He had a bunch of companies, but I used to talk to him every month. He wanted to buy my company, and I know I had no interest in selling it to him, but I was trying to figure out, how come you're so much bigger than me? So I was, I don't know, I don't remember the exact numbers, but he was really getting big, and he'd figured out all the technology and the integration of inbound, outbound, sideways, just all these, how to get business. It's basically, how do you get business if you're a service company? Or now coaching, that's a little different. This is like service business or entrepreneur business or software. Software can be a little different depending on the type of software and whether it's doing something in a company or it's just a consumer product sort of software. It's a very different playbook then. I'm talking about B2B sales, B2B marketing. But the concepts are the same that I'm talking about. It doesn't matter what you're doing, actually. So I'm trying to figure out, full funnel. It was called Full Funnel. And Full Funnel and Scaled were my heroes. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I do Full Funnel or Scaled, but my own version of it? And, eventually we got there with Glenn, with OpGen, but it was incredibly difficult to give up the bigger vision for me, because I had my own agenda, which was, I wanted to be on the cutting edge of what was next. I wanted it to be big. I wanted it to be impactful. I wanted it to be meaningful. I wanted it to be interesting, like all that. Whereas Glenn just wanted it to work, because for him, it was a lifestyle business. So that's the difference. So if you look back at these two other people, so the guy in Boston had money. So he had an investment company also. So he could hire people. He had money, like millions, backing this thing. And I don't know, Jake from Scaled, what he had, but I think he had a technology architecture blueprint makeup. So he could figure out how to architect all this stuff. Whereas my approach is more creative, iterative business development. So I had trouble on the back end of all the stuff I was trying to get done. So I put a team together to do it. And here was the big mistake that I'm going to tell you, that cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars of wasted time, effort, and money. And this was really 2019, 2020, into the pandemic. I kept hiring people who were experts in marketing. It didn't work. It never worked. Never worked. Why? Because they were experts in what they already did. And they wanted that system to come into my vision of what I was creating. And it can't work, because when you're trying to do something new, you can't bolt on a big part of what was already being done into it. It won't work. And I've had probably 5 marketers in different sorts. So we're trying to create a revenue generation company that has outbound sales, it's got lead generation, it's got social data analytics, it's got hyper personalization capabilities, which is called account-based marketing, account-based selling. It's got the ability to do sales, not just business development. So when you build a pipeline, stay on top of the pipeline, but also have a sales kind of person in there making sure that the complex sales moving forward properly. So that's really understanding how complex sales works. That's different. How to help the customer buy is what I call that. Because the buyers struggle because the people in the companies all work in different departments. So they're going to buy from someone. If you help them figure out how to buy change and not make it scary and make it easy, and you're relentlessly persistent with them, they will thank you at the end of the day. I know that because we did it and we still can do it. It's one of the most difficult parts of complex enterprise sales is helping the buyers buy in these companies. They struggle with their own company to get stuff done. So if you're an outsider, you're connecting the dots between all their departments. I'd have a meeting with the CEO. I'm saying, oh, there's a perspective. I'd have a meeting with the CFO. There's a perspective. Meeting with the COO. Oh, there's a perspective. Or people on their teams. And then you realize the people on the teams have a totally different perspective. So if you're on the outside, you can see things they can't see. I did that when I was selling Baxter years ago. And I just walked the halls and I pulled business in. And they didn't even know what was going on in their own company because they're too busy. And they're just trying to get their jobs done in these companies. And the CEO is just riding herd over it. And they can't get into every level of detail and don't want to. So they're not the decision maker a lot of the time. In other companies, they are because they're dictators. It depends. So the point of this is the power of the group is the topic here. So my group isn't showing up, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. That's a technology thing. I know it. They're having trouble getting into Restream. It's just endless, this technology stuff, isn't it? Never ends. And we have a very complex technology footprint. And I just don't worry about it anymore. I'm like, I know it's never going to work properly all the time. And Six Sigma, 99.999%. That's pretty good if we can get that done. And that's where where this comes in. So I hired all these marketing people. I hired a marketing agency at one point. I hired marketing coach. I hired marketing consultant, marketing freelancers, and they're imposing on me their belief system of here's how inbound works, Larry. You're not doing it right. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That already exists. I want to integrate the thought process and what I've got. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. Now, how does this get done then? There's a very interesting dynamic of the collective energy of a group coming together around a shared desire. And getting to that shared desire requires allowing everyone to have their own vision. And the reason my company succeeded eventually, and we did get to the revenue department, it's there now. It's just not what I wanted. But this is what I want. So Red Pill Pathway and Entrepreneur Experience turned out to be where I was going. I just didn't know it. I couldn't connect the dots yet. So what I was learning back then that felt like a pressurized steam cooker that was going to explode was not going to lead towards a revenue generation department that works for under 10 grand a month because I don't care about that. Glenn does. And I like the passive income. But I don't want to work in the company. And I haven't for 4 years because I don't care. I don't care about that topic at all. What I care about is entrepreneurs having a better entrepreneur experience, coaches and service providers the same, and being able to live the way they want to live and make the money they want to make and not have to copy anybody and find their own way forward. That I care about. So that was the whole point. However, the principles are the same. So back then, the shared desire was I found people and figured out what they wanted, and I gave it to them. So when I originally hired Glenn, it was a freelance gig for him. And how do you get a guy like this? He was an investment banker. He worked on Wall Street. He was a Navy lawyer. He sold companies, bought companies. He did a big startup. I mean, This is not the kind of person that's going to work for 4 or 5 grand a month, or 500 bucks a client to make cold calls. And he did. Why? Because he wanted a lifestyle. So you move from New York, Connecticut, Manhattan, give it all up, move to Spain so you can live on the beach and surf and have a family and enjoy the family. That's what he wanted. I knew that because I asked him. And I was like, done, done. What do you know how to do? Well, it was a lot. So we grew it together. And there's a lot of other people like that. I've got a lot of stories. The woman who built the data department. It's incredibly difficult to build a data department in today's world with all these technologies. Back then, a company called Zoom, not this Zoom, not broadcast Zoom, but Zoom Data, it was like a monopoly, and they were crushing us on a cost standpoint. We couldn't do business without them because we needed the names of the potential customers for our customers so we could reach out to people. And integration of all those data stacks and the complexity of that, and then bringing in researched data from social media, or just capturing and integrating data from different streams and sources, is really difficult. Really difficult, whether you're doing inbound, outbound, sideways, it doesn't matter. And we figured it out. And Stacy, when I met her, she was an eating disorder therapist, burned out on her patients never getting better. And, we met, and I'm like, what do you want? She said, I want to do something, like, I want a job. Like I realized this is a very ambitious person that is really skilled, but, I'm like, so what are you good at? She said, well, I'm really good at organizing my kids. I was like, oh, this is perfect. So she started just building lists for my company. And next thing I know, I got a data department. Now I think she works for Accenture in their customer data group or something. And at a certain point, I couldn't afford her anymore. So, and I told her, I was like, you're never going to make more than this much in my company. I'm going to have to lose you. And she quit, amiably, right? Now I have a lot of stories like that. And the reason I'm saying this is you're going to be strapped if you're an entrepreneur. If you're a coach, if you're a service provider, you're going to be strapped, and there's a way out of it. There's a way out of it. And the problem is always the technology. It's so complex. And if you throw up your hands and you just say, save me, people are going to show up and save you, and you're going to regret it. And there's a moment of saying either I'm not doing this at all, I'm just going simple, or I'm doing it and I'm going to run through as many burning buildings as I have to until I get it right. The entrepreneur is going to run through all the burning buildings and not give up. And that's what I do. The coach and the service provider is not. And as I thought about constructing my own entrepreneur experience product, I had to think about that hard. So we built a system where coaches don't have to do anything except coach. You would have a complete system if you come into what we're doing. You won't have to do anything. Market, sell, lead gen, nothing except coach. Now you're going to have to go get clients. Yes, but the way you do it will be fun for you because we're going to find a way that's fun for you. That's the more money now idea. Click the event link and come. I'm not pitching anything. If I was pitching, this would sound different. I'm just offering. Come for a free. Just click the link and come. But, it's real. Like, we're going to show you how to go connect with people and make money as a coach or a service provider without having to build this well, let's talk about coaches first. Without having to build this complex infrastructure you don't want to build. I got a way you can do it because I know you don't want to do all that crap. Now, service provider is a little different. So the service provider is, because my other business I've been in service business for years. And what I found with the service business, because we worked for hundreds of companies, brand agencies, tech IT service companies that built products on top of platforms like Salesforce.com or HubSpot or whatever, the affiliate type companies, done software companies of all kinds, customer experience agencies. It's just endless, the amounts of kinds of industries and companies, and a lot of high end, like people who did big projects like Disney's Magic Band, Carnival Cruise Line's medallion system, people who built big tech architectures and integrations for governments. Like we've been in really high end stuff, but also commoditized lower end sorts of stuff too. I sold insurance for a year, door to door, business insurance. So I understand that industry as well. And one things I've learned about all those service provider industries and service providers is the service provider doesn't want to build a business. They just want to do the service. If they're good at it. I remember when I was in insurance, I would talk to State Farm agents and different insurance agents. So I was trying to figure out how to start an agency or go into one of those systems. And one guy, he's like, I hate selling insurance. And I was like, why are you doing this? And he says, for the money. He says, I teach them how to sell insurance, and then I try to work 1 or 2 hours a day. I'm like, okay, I got it. Another one was like, I love meeting with the families. I really do. I love meeting with the families. I love networking at the Chamber of Commerce. I want to help people. I love being out there in the community as a pillar of the community. This is one of these guys who goes to all the parades, and he's got a card that says, I love insurance. I'm making that up, but it's something like that. So you build it for yourself in your own way. What I found with service providers, the really good ones, is they're really good at what they do. And we had so many of these companies where, they got so tired of people telling them, become the chief sales officer, work on, not in your business. The E-Myth stuff is, I think, irritating as hell for people like this too, because they're trying to figure out a way just to do the work. And their issue is client quality. And the problem is if you're hustling and you're out selling all the time, you attract all the clients with the most pain. So they didn't like sometimes the stuff I brought into them when I was doing business development, because we would always be bringing in problems. And they'd be like, no, that's not the kind of client I want. I want clients that don't have all these problems. I want clients that just let me do good work. You can't do that through outbound sales or marketing or lead gen if you're going to use persuasion, forced approaches, or try to get people to sign up. You can't do it because you're going to attract people with problems. If you want to attract people with problems, those methods work. So I think with service provider industry, it's fixing your own problem. In other words, realizing you're good, knowing how to articulate that as a market authority, but not use market authority persuasion copywriting or influencer personality approaches, because it's not going to work for you because you don't like making content enough. If you do, it'll work for you. But if you don't, you're going to become a content marketer, and you'd already be one, not a technologist or a consultant or a productivity expert or whatever you are. You're the COO, you're the fractional marketing officer, you're the operations expert or whatever, and your stuff. People want that. But if you don't allow them to find you and be visible, and you allow people to hire you that aren't going to let you do your job, that's a real problem. And I've had a lot of situations where I've hired people and I'm not letting them do their job because I didn't want what they really did. I just wanted them to get something done. So I'm a bad client then. They should have said no to me. And I know I'm frustrating them sometimes because, they're like, they want to be strategic and have strategic conversations, and they want to help me do it right. And I don't want to do it right. I'm just like, no, I just hired you to get this data table together, like for $100. Like, I don't want this to grow into a $4,000 a month retainer. And they took the job to get in. Big mistake. Now, you may want to take the job to get in. I've done that before. When I sold Allstate, I got into Allstate to get a job to get in because there was a big multi-million-dollar opportunity there. But I had a strategic relationship where I had talked to somebody and I knew where they were going. And I'm like, I just want, my mentor, Jed Jacobs, said, get the keys to the kingdom. And what he meant was get the data, which means you get a key card into the building. Now it's virtual, but it's still a key card into the building where they'll talk to you because you're doing a project with them. It doesn't matter what the project is. You don't do that to get money. You do that as a strategic decision to expand a relationship with a key account. Now, the approach is to get those accounts, account-based marketing, account-based selling. It's a very different, hyper-customized, personalized approach. Don't do it at the top of the funnel, or do it. Okay, so I'm going on and on with all these beliefs. So the answer is, it starts with you. Who are you? Are you an entrepreneur? Vision, burning building, got to make it happen. I can't stop this thought process. It never ends. It's crushing me, crushing my family. I heard Elon Musk say, "You don't want to live in my head." And I get what he means. I don't know what he means specifically, but I know what that's like. Of, I can't live in my own head anymore because these ideas won't ever stop. And I had to learn how to deal with that energy. That's an energy problem. It's an energy problem. Um, the entrepreneur is different. Now the coach, it's very different again. So I know coaches now because I've been in that coaching industry for a couple of years, and they don't want to sell. They don't want to network. They want to do lead gen. They don't want to be marketers. They don't want to run from building to building to building in burning flames trying to figure out something cool. They just want to help people. And there's all kinds of them. There's people who want to help people be more productive. There's people who want to help people cultivate and curate their energy. There's people who want to help people have better family lives. There's people who want to help people have better emotional intelligence. They don't want to build companies. They just want to help people. And they're stuck in sometimes these free networking groups teaching them how to be networkers or marketers or chief sales officers for their company. And those skills are important. You need to have the basics and understanding of business, and the E-Myth basic stuff is a good idea. But the issue I found with people like this is they're not happy with it. And then there's a feeling of desperation. There's a feeling of, I'm a broke coach and I'm never going to get out of it. There's pathways out. There's pathways out. But one of the pathways out is not to turn yourself into an influencer marketer personality or a copywriter making content all the time, unless you love doing that, particularly if it's the persuasion type of content, because it's too difficult. There's a whole team involved. Now, you could form a team where you've got 5 people doing this with you in a little cohort, and you're not charging each other. I'm not talking about a posting pod. I did that in 2020. I started a LinkedIn posting pod. That's different. I'm talking about a grouping of people swapping skills. I've done a lot of that stuff too. That's what I'm doing now with the people who couldn't get in the room here, because I can't finish the Go High Level integration. It's too complicated with the tagging in Go High Level behind the scenes. To get a marketing system to work properly is extremely difficult. And Gail Kraft, who's one of my founding members, who is in my pilot group, we've been working together for a while now. She did this for a Hancock. She worked for GE, Six Sigma. She did this in health insurance. You can't make a mistake. So doing it with stuff I'm doing is, and we're using really advanced new technologies. It's very difficult to integrate these things, and she knows how to do it. I can't do it. My assistant can't figure it out. She's never done anything like this before. I've done it before, but I never did the actual tagging myself and architecture of all the workflows. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but architecting the process is really difficult. It's different from somebody like me saying, this is the experience I want it to be like. These are the requirements. I can do that. I have somebody who can execute on it extraordinarily well, who's really intelligent at design and architecture of the technology. But there's an intermediary step of, how do you make that experience understandable to the person who's doing the programming in these 4 different technology systems. So we've got Notion, Welo, Go High Level, and Discord. It's really complicated. And now we got this Restream thing. 2 people can't sign in. They can't get in. Whose fault is it? It's usually the technology company. If anything's problematic with technology, it's the technology company. They like to blame the user. Steve Jobs never blamed a user. Bill Gates, I think, blamed the users. But, I don't know. He's out of the business. But that legacy lasts. So if you're going to integrate, if you're going to do really complex architectures and you're a coach, you're going to have to spend 100 grand to build your coaching business. You're not going to want to do that. It's not worth it. You don't need to do that just to have 5 clients a month. I did it for you. You just have to come and check it out. If you're a service provider and all you want to do is just do good work and have good clients, I know how to do that. But I'm not going to ask you to do it like me because I know you're not going to do all the stuff I do or want to do. You're not going. It's too hard for you because you don't care. You just want good clients. You come. You're an entrepreneur. You like running into burning buildings. Well, let's run into them together. So that's what I have to offer to you. All right, I'm going to stay on for not too long. God, I had a rough night last night. So my daughter's part of this dance company in where I live in Evanston, and it's pretty cool because it's like a real artistic company. So it's not dance competition, and which is like, all right, I liked watching Glee with my wife and my daughter, but um, but it's an artistic company. It's incredible. They're so good. These kids are so good, and middle school and high school. So we went to a thing last night because in Evanston, there's a lot of local breweries, two good ones in particular, really good. And so we went to the brewery and I'm hanging out with all the parents. So I'm drinking. And it's high octane beer. So I'm tapped out right now. And last night I couldn't sleep. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And it's this feeling of excitement around what's coming. And I want to talk about this in the context of entrepreneurs because I think there's a vision flow. And I was thinking a lot about Mark Andreessen and thinking a lot about Elon Musk and Larry Ellison and what I've learned from them and where the issues are with people like this and what we can learn from them. Don't think they got it all figured out, and they know they don't. And a guy like Mark Andreessen is so far ahead in his understanding of technology. And I was reading a quote where he said, technology is like water. It finds its own level. And he's watching what the technology is going to turn into. And I thought, oh my God, that is how I think about business development and sales and entrepreneur businesses and societal opportunities for self-employment. He thinks like that with technology. And he saw the cloud coming. He saw Netscape, Mosaic. So you don't know Mark Andreessen. He was on the cover of Time magazine years ago as one of the whiz kids because he came out of a little town in Wisconsin. I know rural Wisconsin because I used to sell clothes in the Midwest. So I know I've driven all over Wisconsin. I rode my bike around Kettle Moraine and I've been all over Wisconsin. I know what it's like. It's really small town. There's dairy farms and stuff. It's super cool. They actually have hills, unlike in Illinois. So you're isolated. So he's like, well, the nearest bookstore is an hour away. It was a Walden Books, which sucks. Mark's like me. I'm going to buy the craziest thing in the bookstore because I want to know what it means and what it is. I can't not do that. He's the same. But for him, it's technology. So he ends up getting access to a supercomputer at University of Illinois in their engineering department, one of the best in the world. And he was like, oh my God, what is this? I think maybe it was called DARPANET then, but he's like, what is this thing? I want everyone to have this. Bam, go. That's it. So that's the beginning of the vision. I want everybody to have this thing that's incredible. That means something. And he went with that energy. What did that turn into? I'll go through the whole story. Mosaic. It was the first internet browser. Why did that happen? Because he embedded himself in that technology. He was like, this has to happen. And I don't care how many burning buildings I got to run into. This is like what I'm like too. It has to happen. I am the most stubborn person in the world because I am not going to listen to anything you tell me now that I know this is possible. And I know it's going to happen because it has to happen. And if it doesn't, I'm going to blow my brains out. It has to happen. That's an entrepreneur. And it happened. But how does it happen? In the marketplace. This is the More Money Now approach that I'm teaching in the Entrepreneur Experience Campus, because in the market is where the answers are. So this is what Mark did. He hit with Jim Clark, his partner. They got in the market and they're like, how do we make this possible for regular people? How do we make the technology disappear is what he did. That's Steve Jobs. That's what Steve Jobs did. He made the technology disappear so regular people could use the thing. So that's what they did. And then they created Mosaic. And then that turned into Netscape. That's the company. Now you got to build a company. That's a whole nother problem. How do you build a company of a type that's never existed before? Well, you build it based on principles, and you build it based on movement in the market, iterative motion, and a feeling of, I don't care what's going to happen. I'm lowering this parking brake and I'm going through that gate. And if I have to set a fire everywhere I go, I don't care. I feel exactly the same way about the stuff that I do. I'm going to do it. It is going to happen because it has to happen. I can't survive without this thing happening. That's the entrepreneur energy. So what's the problem with that? Is shutting it off. It's really hard to shut it off. I haven't finished Walter Isaacson's book on Elon Musk, but I started it and I was like, oh my God, this guy grew up in the Hunger Games and his dad was in charge of the game. I'm starting to feel differently about Elon. I'm like, oh my God, I get it. You grew up in South Africa. That's different. And I'm reading about the family history, and I'm like, wow, this guy's unbelievable. So instead of the politicized caricature version of Elon, I'm looking at the Elon that I can see. Now, I don't see all of them, of course, but I can see what makes sense to me based on being an entrepreneur with that energy too. And then I heard him say things like, I almost killed myself fixing the problem at Tesla. And I'm like, me too. I almost killed myself fixing the problem in the little dinky sales company. It's not Tesla. It's never gotten over 1.5 million. But that's, it doesn't matter. That the form doesn't matter. It's the same experience. It's this feeling of, I can't stop the thinking. And the ideas, they just don't stop coming. And so I had to turn that business over to somebody to run because I had to go with what was next. Because I felt it in the zeitgeist energy of the world. I'm like, I got to go after whatever this is. I don't know what it is. Going down this red pill pathway road and entrepreneur experience and starting Sales Sherpa and Revenue Climber and Solopreneuring was a dumb idea, a terrible idea for me. It cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million, and wasted income that I could have had, burning through savings, loading up home equity lines, and dealing with this old house, which is what crushed me this year, our money pit that we live in, because I didn't downsize my life to do all this stuff, is part of the game for an entrepreneur, and you're just going to do it. And I'm thinking about Larry Ellison, I'm thinking about Elon Musk, I'm thinking about Mark Andreessen, and they're talking about that thinking process and being able to understand how to manage energy. For me, was the answer. So last night I can't sleep because the ideas they won't stop coming because I'm excited. I'm like, oh my God, we're almost done. It's working. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to write this article. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this. And I'm thinking, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to know anything. And the connection is in my breath. So the breath is where the energy is. So I've been studying energy by practicing it for almost 40 years. So when I met Sifu Tai Chi Bruce, he taught us martial arts and energy and health, how to defend yourself and how to heal yourself with your breath and your energy. And then if you need to, take somebody out, if they attack you, you're going to take them out, but you're not going to run around and pick fights. But, don't approach me in a dark alley and try to take my wallet, because if you don't have a gun, even if you have a gun, you may be flat on your back. That energy is the same energy as the creative energy in the imagination. It's the same energy artists use, painters, musicians, Willie Nelson. So that's why I say to people, on my website, Red Pill Pathway came to me like a song, like Willie Nelson got a song. Because I read Willie Nelson's autobiography or biography, I forget. And I'm like, that's how this happened. I didn't understand how it worked. Now I do, because I experience it. And that flowing energetic feeling can destroy me. So, and my wife's like, what the hell? We're married. Like, can you ever be here? That's the problem, meaning be here. It's hard because I'm like, no, I got to go over there in the idea. So it's not going somewhere chasing something. It's being in the flow of creative energy and intelligence. It's telling me what to learn. So with Mark, I think it's Where's the technology going to go? He can see it because he's an expert. He's so deep in it. I can't see it, but I get the concept. So when he says the technology is going into the cloud, I'm like, where's it going next? He says, well, the technology acts like water. Well, where does water end up? It ends up disappearing. And I'm like, oh, this is great. The technology is going to disappear. Thank God. So I envision a world in the future with Y Combinator of a new internet. So they're talking about this, a new internet, Chris Dixon's book, where the technology disappears and it's now about the creator. So the money goes to the creator of the experience. Who is that? The entrepreneur with the new idea, better healthcare, better government, better everything, better dog food companies. Why would a dog food company have people in it that don't love dogs? You can't come. So you can't even invest in it. I wouldn't let you. You can't take public money. So if you have a dog food company, you're making dog food. The only people who are allowed to work in my dog food company are people who love dogs. That's it. So I hope someone who loves dogs can give me $100 million investment if I have a dog food company, because I'm going to need that money. There's going to be somebody. That's the new world that's coming. It's so obvious because the technology is going to disappear. And when the technology disappears, because it's succeeded. So Mark Andreessen said software is going to eat the world. Well, it's still eating it. What happens when it's finished? It's not finished. It's still an ad network. Google's an ad network. All the stuff that was built, it's an ad network. It's broken half the time. The internet doesn't even work properly. Well, Elon's got Starlink. So the technologies are there. When the technology disappears and all we have to do is plug in, the world changes overnight because now anybody can do anything. All you have to do is know who you are, what the experience is you want to create, and do it. The technology is no longer the barrier like it is today. I spend more time doing tech support for my own. I had to do tech support. We bought a litter box. I had to do tech support for the litter robot. And then we just sent it back. The cat wouldn't use it. And I'm like, thank God, because the app's never working properly. And, I'm watching myself go through this now, and I'm like, my God, this is hard. Doing Welo, this video metaverse campus, and Go High Level, this incredible platform, and Discord, where the calendar doesn't work properly half the time. And these are great platforms. Notion, it's an incredible technology, but the technology's still there. It hasn't disappeared yet. And I can't figure it out. But Gail, my founding partner, ran big projects, Six Sigma kind of projects for GE insurance companies. So she can do it. So we're partnering on it. It's the only way to get through this stuff. It's a nightmare until Silicon Valley wakes up and figures out how to make the technology disappear and gets rid of the ad network model. The technology's got to serve the people. And once that happens, I think we're going to see a new world emerge. And that was the original promise of it when all of this stuff started.